last week, we're doing our first ever Pop and Silver. We got Larry Krueger on. I'm feeling pretty good about how the show's moving along. There's a lot of things to keep track of. And then Krug comes in and just hits us with the groan of a lifetime over the top.
Was that a moan?
I'm a little scared of what we're going to get right now, so I'm just going to say, hello, Larry. Welcome, and how are you today?
Lock in, Silver. Lock in. Wait a second. Wait. What? I just heard in my ear the 49ers have just missed another tackle.
Yeah, lock in is a good way to put it.
They just missed another tackle.
Lock in's a good way to put it. So the run game absolutely trampled the 49ers. I know there's a lot of injuries. I know circumstances have not gone in their favor, but there's a lot to criticize. So what was the biggest problem of many for you yesterday?
Well, I mean, I was joking about it, but I'll start right there. Missed tackles. I thought the missed tackles were, I expected it to be a challenge. Jacobs is a tremendous back. The Niners are beat up. They look tired. Fred Warner didn't want to admit it to me in the locker room, but I said, Fred, you're looking gassed. He's like, I never get gassed. But the reality is he's gotten worn down. And if you want to call it a trade, their trade of Dre Greenlaw for Devondre Campbell is not necessarily working out great. And they missed just an awful lot of tackles in this game. So I thought that was the thing that really, obviously the two penalties for 12 men on the field, that stands out too. But that was more of an aberration, I think. 15 missed tackles in the first half, almost 20 for the game. That was not an aberration. That was real.
And 10 in the opening quarter. And Pro Football Focus had him at 19, although Fox had him at 20. So you mentioned Devondre, and he was involved in the 12 men on the field, both plays. They wanted to go to a 5-man front and leave 5 DBs in the game and go to a 5-1-5 defense, but that means Devondre comes off the field. The first time they just quick snapped him, and they should have been allowed to sub. So that may be something the league acknowledges. The second one,
right.
He just didn't get the call. I don't know. But going back to the missed tackles, and do you watch the All-22 yet back there?
No, the All-22 wasn't out last night, so I've only gotten a look at it for about 15 minutes this morning.
Well, watch the second play of the game from scrimmage, and I think that's where, and Devondre's involved, and it's
the
just a
16-yard run to Jacobs,
18-yard run by Josh Jacobs, but it was the pre-snap motion. They did it all game. And everybody does it. The Niners do it with Debo. Mike McDaniel in Miami does it with Tyreek and others. But using Jaden Reed, number 11, as the motion man, the orbit motion man behind Jacobs and Love, and also having Tucker Kraft, the tight end, go one direction, and Reed out of the orbit goes the other, and the Niners are spinning. And then on the second play of the game, they call a stunt on the line where they all get washed down. They go one direction, and the linebacker's got to fill behind it, and Josh Jacobs just running downhill, didn't get touched until Jair Brown hit him, and that was, 8 yards down the line of scrimmage. That's a missed tackle, but that's hard to tackle that guy. He's hard to tackle in the box. He's difficult when he's got a full head of steam coming downhill at you at 223 pounds. So just all the orbit, you're going to see more of it. Buffalo's going to do it. Obviously, Miami majors in it. The Niners do it. Just the way they were able to move the linebackers out of their gap, did not have gap integrity, I think opened it up for them to miss so many tackles. So just what are you? It's not just the front. It's the front 7. It's the way the linebackers fit in behind. It's all of them. They all are culpable with getting trampled the way they did yesterday in Green Bay.
Yeah, and it's also a fatigue factor. Fred's played a lot of ball. I hate making excuses because excuses are just that, right? Excuses. But here's the reality. This is a fact. This is not an opinion. This is a fact. The 49ers have played 12 playoff games since 2019. That is almost an additional season. And it
3
really
years
is starting.
For 4 of the 5 years, yeah.
Yeah. It is coming home to roost. There is an impact of games. You talk to football players and coaches, they'll tell you, man, there's only so many games in a body. There's only so many games that you can play in a year. So The schedule makers did them no favors. They got 4 teams off the bye. Buffalo will be the 4th. No other team in the league's got 2, but that sounds like sour grapes and probably is. But it's gotten to that's a factor. That's one of the factors. But there are many factors. And I was just going through it in my head. What are the factors? I mean, their schedule's been brutal. They have O-line. They have holes on the O-line. CMC looks to me to be diminished. I don't think Shanahan's made the adjustment to that. Ayuk obviously done for the year. Debo has clearly lost a step. They haven't used Pearsall effectively at all from scrimmage yet. For whatever reason, Kyle has gone completely away from Mason and Garendo since the return of McCaffrey. Special teams, huge penalty on Eric Saubert on the hold. And it was legit. It was a legit hold on the Debo 87-yarder. That was a crusher. Yeah, I mean, the D-line's definitely been in decline. They're not as deep there, and they've made some questionable decisions at the cut down the last couple of years on some good young corners like Deshaun Jameson and Sam Womack for veteran guys like Yadam and Isaiah Oliver. I don't think that necessarily has worked out, but I think it's, if you said the number one thing, I just think that they've depleted some of their depth of the Hargrave. They missed on those number ones, and they've played 12 playoff games since 2019. And I think the combination is just, it's taken a big bite out of their personnel and out of their energy.
Larry Krueger joining us, and I'll tell you that you're listening to KNBR and KNBR FM San Francisco, the sports leader, a Cumulus Media station. 2 down, 2 to go here, and Krug is hanging out with us to help us process a 38-10 beatdown at Lambeau Field. You just mentioned a lot of the factors. It's not one thing. It is a lot of things that have contributed to a really difficult 49ers season. Some of them are unfortunate parts of the game, like injuries. Some have extended to unfortunate out-of-football matters, like Ricky Pearsall not getting a true rookie season. We talked about this with Matt Barrows about an hour ago, and I want to ask you the same question, which is, make the playoffs or not. I'm not saying the season's over, but it's not looking great. The bottom line is the 49ers will have a lot to reassess in this coming offseason. They got a lot of guys on high contracts and a lot of players with a ton of football mileage on their bodies. If you're Kyle Shanahan, and yes, I don't think he's going anywhere, if you're Shanahan, what need to be the areas that you focus on and address, whether that be roster-wise, scheme, different coaches on your staff? Bottom line is, good franchises find different ways to evolve and reinvent themselves. How do the 49ers evolve from what has been a really sour season here?
Well, I mean, I'm not in the camp of the, and there's a lot of people screaming, fire Kyle. I mean, guys, can we try to remember that this guy turned the 49ers around from the tire fire that they were in 2 years and got to the Super Bowl, that they've been to 4 or 5 of the last NFC title games, that he's 8-4 in the playoffs, that he's gone to the Super Bowl with Garoppolo and Purdy. And, Kyle Shanahan's a good coach, but they definitely need to make some adjustments. And to me, the first one starts with Kyle. It's like, how's Kyle personally feeling? And, obviously, he just doesn't look right to me. And he looks really, really tired, and he looks really, really worn down. So, I guess the first thing is just, how is he physically feeling? How is he physically, going to do all this? It's a ton of work. Is he up for it? So that's the first thing. He's a young man. I think he's a lifer. I don't think he's going anywhere. I don't think he should go anywhere. But the first question is, Kyle, how are you feeling? The second thing is, does he need a star defensive coordinator, or at least an accomplished defensive coordinator? I don't think it's fair to put it all on Nick, because I think this is more about personnel, to be completely honest. But does he need a somebody who's proven in that, a little bit more of a proven entity there? And then overall, I think they really missed all those picks that they moved off of. They got to start hitting. Think about it this way. They've missed on 8 number ones. If they had hit on half of them, they were still missed on 4. If you missed on 4 number ones, you'd have 4 first-round draft choices spread throughout your roster right now. I think it would make a significant upgrade to the roster. So they just have to start hitting at the beginning of the draft. They're really good on day 3. They're really great after the draft. They're really good on a lot of moves, but they've really struggled on day 1 and day 2 of the draft, and And this draft was very, very good. But one draft doesn't overcome 2 or 3 drafts where you swung and missed a lot. And I think that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday was just a unmitigated disaster in every regard. They got outplayed. One of the worst losses. It's the worst loss since I've been with the Niners in 19. Kyle had worse losses in 17 and 18, but they didn't have the roster. I mean, it all changed when you got Bosa and Debo. So yesterday was just what happened. But you didn't have the quarterback, you didn't have the left tackle, you didn't have the premier rush end, you didn't have your shutdown corner. But still, it was bad. But the main reason, going into the bye, they were 4-4, not 6-2, was special teams. Just a disaster in all but 2 games, the Jet game and the Cowboy game going into the bye. Otherwise, every other game you had a fiasco, and a couple of them, many of them. Which leads to, and I perked up when you said we had a couple of holds on Ricky. Ricky Pearsall ran the ball well on punt returns, and that's a job I think he takes over for Jacob Cowing now, even when Jacob comes back out of concussion protocol. Ricky's a natural catcher of the ball, and he just feels it. But they held on both of his returns. But the long one by Debo, 86, 87 yards, whatever it was to start the second half, if there's no flag on that, it's 1st and goal on the 8-yard line. I got, calling the game, I got Tim Ryan to one side, and Tim Ryan went crazy. Called it a garbage call at least 10 times. During the play, after the play, on the post game, on the flight home, he kept saying garbage, garbage, garbage. I turned to my left, and I know a guy that you respect a lot, Brian Baldinger, is calling the game on national radio on Compass Media. He turns to me right away. He's an ex-lineman. He's like, he's got his arms inside. He pancaked him. He lifted him up, and he put him right on the ground, and it was Zane Anderson, number 39. I have not heard many people take the other side of it. You'd think that was a hold on Eric Saubert, Krugs? I want to hear your reason why you think that was a legit call.
The hands were definitely in, which is what they coach, right? They coach the hands to be in. So his hands were in the proper spot. But there's no doubt that he had 2 full fistful of jersey. I didn't like it in real time because, to me, it wasn't outside of his body. He wasn't restricting the movement. He did have 2 hands, and he drove them into the turf. I mean, I agree with Tim. At full speed, doesn't look like a hold. At half speed, it looks ticky-tack. When you slow it down and you see he's got 2 hands of jersey, if that's not a hold, I don't know what is. You're holding on to the guy. If he goes down, you go down. I didn't love it just because it was inside. He had the proper technique. So I didn't love it from that standpoint. They reward you if you have the proper technique. If you try to restrict a guy or pull him from side to side and don't let him restrict his movement, the flag goes up. To me, he was on him and directing him, but he definitely had 2 hands full of jerseys. There's no question. He had both jerseys in his grasp. You could see it. But I understand what Tim's saying, because Tim's saying, hey, look, he did it the way they coach you to do it, which is grab the inside of the shoulder pads and drive the guy. And he did that. But, I mean, how can you have a special teams play for the 49ers that doesn't draw a penalty? I mean, my goodness, it's amazing how frequently they are flagged on special teams.
Few more minutes here with Larry Krueger. You can catch him every weeknight from 6 to 7 right here on KNBR for Niners Nightly. I should also tell you that it will be a YouTube-only stream tonight for Niners Nightly because of the Harbaugh Bowl. Ravens, Chargers, Monday Night Football is going to be on the airwaves for KNBR, but that doesn't mean you can't find your Krug. Just go to YouTube or Twitch for KNBR, and he can continue this conversation he's having with us here. Larry, in terms of roster changes and reconstruction,
right,
Brock Purdy is going to get paid this offseason. I think that's probably a foregone conclusion. And yesterday, for any of the doubters, I think is another reason why Purdy is going to be on this roster, because without Brock Purdy, that was a darn near hopeless game. When you look at some of the moves they might have to make, contracts they might have to get rid of, is there a particular area beyond just the lines of scrimmage? Because I would say that's the big one for me, offensive line, defensive line. What are the other areas where you think this team needs to retool? Because they still got a lot of young talent. When you look around, it's just not clicking together right now.
Well, they got to find some the tight ends are a major part of this offense. You have to have better talent at tight end than you have right now. You have George. He's obviously incredible, but he's 30, going to be 31 next year. And then you have Saubert, who's a strong blocker. But the other guys have got to emerge. If I don't know if it's Tongas, I think it's Pline. But you got to find one receiving tight end, and you got to go out and find a real blocking tight end that will free up George, because George means more to you, I think, as a receiver. Without some of the receivers that you got to have him as a receiver. So you got to find somebody who can replicate what he does on the line of scrimmage, which is really hard to do. So I would say tight end is one spot, and then the wide receiving core is going to have to be fleshed out and figured out, because Ayuk's not going to give you anything next year. Debo looks like he's lost a step or step and a half. Pearsall is not getting good separation. They're not utilizing him a lot, but he's not typically getting good separation if you look at the numbers of his separation on targets when he's been targeted. So he's got to grow. Cowling's got to grow and get stronger, and they probably have to go find themselves another significant player at wide receiver. So to me, wide receiver and tight end, I think, are vitally important.
What did you think of Brandon Allen yesterday? And I asked that twofold. Daniel Jones is going to clear waivers here in the next 50 minutes. He's going to clear waivers at about 1 o'clock our time. So nobody's picking up that contract, obviously.
Sure.
So once he's a straight free agent, and I think the claiming teams, it goes to record, and the Niners being 5-6, all of a sudden they're closer to the front. Now, he wants to go to a team that has a chance to play in the playoffs. I don't know if he's going to. He probably wants a platform to be able to play, but he's not going to be a starting quarterback in the playoffs. He'd be on somebody's roster. So what did you think of Allen proceeding forward? Is he a backup? Is he more of a third? And if you're John Lynch, would you put a claim in for Daniel Jones based on what you saw in the draft? And a couple of years ago, he went to Minnesota, won a playoff game with the Giants, Larry.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that he led them to like 9-6-1 and a playoff victory over the Vikings. So everybody sees things as they are in the present. Almost nobody can ever see things as they potentially could be. But credit Sam Darnold. He saw the way things potentially could be, and he came here, and he's benefiting from having been here. And I think it's partly the organization, partly Kyle's offense, but partly I think also, if you ask Sam, honestly, it's about working with Brock and seeing his preparation, because he's so detailed. So I think it would be smart of the 49ers to take a look at Jones, just because he is big and strong and fast and athletic. And, guys, I think people forget, everybody sees things as they are, but Alex Smith did not become Alex Smith at all until Jim Harbaugh showed up. That was Alex's 8th year. I bring up Alex because Jones is a lot of similar traits. He's big. He's very, very straight line fast. He's very athletic, and I think he's definitely better than Dobbs or Brandon Allen, and I think the 49ers should take a look at him. As far as what I thought of Allen, I thought he did the best he could do in that situation. I understood that Kyle was going to go with him over Dobbs. I don't agree with the people who were like, it should have been Dobbs. It should have been Dobbs. All I would say to those people is you're arguing with total certainty about a player who's 3-11 in his career. So, I mean, just remember that. I think Allen operated this. I was at every practice this summer. I thought Allen was the better player in the practices. I thought Dobbs may have outplayed him a little bit in a couple of the games, but I thought Allen outplayed him, and I knew Kyle would go with Allen. I thought Allen did okay. He did okay. You gotta put the ball away in a crowd when you've got bodies around you. He made that mistake where he's trying to extend plays. The ball popped out a couple times. It's Green Bay. It's cold. He hasn't played a lot. So I want to give him a pass. I thought he delivered the ball well. He played with confidence. I don't think he, wet the bed or the moment was too big, but he's just not a huge talent. He's just not a huge talent, doesn't have a huge arm. And really what was noticeable is that he doesn't have anywhere close to Brock Purdy's escapability, right? So when Brock leaves the pocket, man, stuff happens. When Brandon leaves the pocket, not so much. So I liked him. I think he's a good backup, but I think he's more of a 3.
Larry, real quick before we let you get out of here, you buying this momentum of Ha-Seong Kim possibly coming to the Bay Area?
Oh, it makes all the sense in the world. It really does. I mean, the Giants need a shortstop, and Ha-Seong Kim's got a good relationship with their center fielder, who they really, really like, and I thought really looked good defensively. So, I think Kim, Adames is going to cost you a pick. Is Kim going to cost you a pick? I don't know about
believe
that,
so.
but I know
He's
what
not
I know.
gonna
What
cost
Adames
you
would
nearly
have
as
cost him a
much
pick.
money. Do you worry about he's coming back off a torn labrum? I mean, Jung-Hoo Lee's got a bad shoulder as well. What kind of offense is he going to be able to give you, Ha-Seong Kim?
Yeah, that's a great question. And then how many games can he play at shortstop? And then do they want to play Fitzgerald there a little bit? Do they want to play Luciano there a little bit? Or are they moving those guys off that position altogether and they want an everyday shortstop? But if Kim checks out physically, I think he does enough good things to help you. He can play either side of the bag. He can move a little bit. He's got a little bit of thunder in his wrists. I think he's got some good years ahead of him. I think this is a good fit for him. I think they'll probably wind up having to pay him more. I would say a 3-year deal would be ideal. I think it's probably going to be longer.
All right. Well, Larry, have a great show tonight. Appreciate you stopping by with us. And I'm looking forward, for your sake, to getting to interact with all the callers to want that Krug take on a 38-10 shellacking.
Yeah, well, we won't do calls tonight because we'll be on the YouTube, but we'll read lots of juicy chats. But we'll be back tomorrow night taking a lot of calls. Just Niners Nightly, of course, this week. Monday on the YouTube, Tuesday, Wednesday on the radio. No Thursday, Friday because of the holidays. So, but we'll get through it. We'll get through it. I mean, the 49ers, this is not familiar territory for Niners or Niner fans, but all is not lost. And I'm not in the fire Kyle category. I'm just not.
Yeah, no, me neither. And I think we're workshopping a way to be able to take calls on YouTube only shows. But anyway, have a great show and appreciate your time.
Figure it out. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Double Greg.
I was like, why is he repeating himself? Larry
I'm
Kruger.
going to call Greg way more than I ever have. What happened to Pop?
Pop and Sub
Nobody's
Pop.
popping me anymore because they're Gregging us.
Well, we can go Pop and Sub Pop. Bring back the hats from last week,
Like that.
and we'll play Allentown every segment in the rejoins.